Number 10, 1973 2.7 Carrera RS. Now, why do I pick this car? This car is the modern blueprint for all GT cars that have come after it. Lightweight chassis, lightweight body panels, lightweight glass, and a 2.7 naturally aspirated flat six engine. This is the GT car before the GT car existed. These cars now trade at over £1 million each. Okay, number 9, the 964 Turbo, also known as the Bad Boys 911 Turbo. Back in 1995, I went to the cinema with a friend to watch the film Bad Boys, and this was the first time I ever really fell in love with a Porsche. It was so iconic in that film, and for a long time after, I didn't really know what the model was. I knew it was a Porsche, I knew it was a 911 Turbo, but I didn't know it was a 964 Turbo. Those split rim alloys are just amazing, and that car forever stuck in my mind. Number 8, the 911 GT1. This car was designed to be on the racetrack. Gran Turismo racing was a big thing in the 80s. This car was developed specifically for that race series. The engine that went into the GT1, the Metzger engine, is an icon in itself within the Porsche brand. And many of the cars that came after, especially in the 996 and 997s, they had this engine. Also, this was one of the, I think it was the first car based on the 911 that was mid-engined. Porsche put the engine in front of the rear axle. This competed in the Gran Turismo series, winning first and second place. As a result of them wanting to go racing, back in those days you had to homologate. The car that was racing had to be based on a road car, so they had to produce a certain number of road cars to allow them to be able to enter this into the race. They only produced 21 road cars. Needless to say, those cars are now also priceless. Number 7, the Boxster. And before you start laughing and say, why is this on our top 10 list? In the early 90s, Porsche was really struggling. Financially, Porsche was struggling. They weren't selling enough cars. They were really in trouble. And they came up with this idea to produce a entry Porsche, and it became known as the Boxster. It was released in 1995, came with a 2.5 flat six engine. I actually owned one of these cars. It was my first Porsche. It was a Zenith Blue. 2.5 engine. It was my introduction. I bought it off my brother actually, yeah, that was my introduction. I drove it for like 4 days and then I had to go back to the sea for 4 months, so I had to put it away and wait for all those months to get back and drive it again. One of the best driving experiences of my life up until that point. And more specifically in my list, I would say the 981 is the pinnacle of the Boxster. And the reason why I say that is because when the 982 came out, known as the 718, it became a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, which was not popular. And sales slumped. Now, in 2020, they've released the new Spyder GT4 and the GTS with a 4-litre flat six. They've reintroduced those engines into the Boxster because of demand. Porsche is one of the few companies that actually listens to its customers. However, because of these new laws in the EU with these gas particulate filters, the engine sounds have been muted. So the engine's sounds don't sound so great. So the reason why I say the 981 is the best car is because it has all of the things that I look for in a car. It has the performance, it has the looks, and it has the audio, the soundtrack to go with it. Number 6, the 997 Turbo. When they developed the GT1, that engine, the Metzger engine, Porsche created derivatives from that engine to put in other cars. The 996 Turbo, the 997 Turbo had the Metzger engine. The 997 Turbo engine was known as being bulletproof. Some of the people that I know, they have developed these cars into 650 wheel horsepower plus. There's a company called 9 Excellence in the UK. They've developed a 996 turbo that can do over 220 miles an hour. All-wheel drive system, which derives from the 959. I own a 997 turbo. Photographs that you're seeing on the screen right now, they are my actual car when I collected it. Number 5, the Carrera GT. The Carrera GT, again, at the time of its release, this was the flagship of the Porsche fleet. And what was it? Mid-engined. So the GT1, developed for racing, mid-engine 911. The Boxster was a mid-engined car, and the Carrera GT, it was a mid-engine car with a normally aspirated V10 engine. I think this car is the best sounding car Porsche have ever made. I was lucky enough to drive one of these cars quite extensively in 2012. I worked on a super yacht, and the owner actually owned a Carrera GT. The photographs that I'm putting on screen right now were taken by me while I was driving this car. When you had the roof on, it was actually quite mechanical, the sounds in single mass flywheel, and you hear a lot of clanking and banging coming from behind your head, and it wasn't actually that pretty a sound. But once you take that roof off, the carbon fiber roof, and store it in the front boot, all you can hear is that exhaust note. It's absolutely glorious. A lot of people complained about the clutch on it, and I too think that was probably the only issue that I had with that car. The way to drive that car is you had to let the clutch out with no gas at all and wait for the anti-stall to kick in, and that would start to move the car forward. As soon as you felt the car moving forward, then you could apply the gas. But once you got that car going, it was absolutely fabulous. What an amazing experience to drive that car. Number 4, the 911R. The 911R came about because Porsche decided in their wisdom that they weren't going to produce any more manual transmission GT cars. So the GT3 at the time came out with a PDK only gearbox. A few things happened. The existing cars that Porsche had produced, the GT3s and GT3 RSs from the previous generation, i.e. the 997, the prices of those cars went through the roof because people were thinking, well, these are the last cars with a manual gearbox. So people started to hoard them, and the prices of these cars, especially the special editions like the 4-litre GT3 RS, and the GT2 RS, prices of those cars went through the roof. They were already limited. Those prices got up to around the $500,000 mark. A lot of complaints from customers to Porsche, and Porsche listened. One of the few companies that actually listens to its customers, and they produced the 911R. So after the 991.1 GT3 RS came out, the 4-litre engine they put in that car, they put in the 911R. They developed a gearbox specifically for the 911R, a 6-speed manual transmission, and they put that in with the 4-litre engine from the GT3 RS. They only sold a limited number of these cars. As soon as they were all delivered, they were changing hands for up to €1 million each. A car that retailed from Porsche for about £150,000 were retailing for $1 million. Incredible. Number 3. The 997 GT2 RS. Why did I pick the 997 GT2 RS? The last GT2 model to come with a manual gearbox. The last GT2 model to come with hydraulic steering. The most powerful engine ever put in a 911 until the release of the 991 GT2 RS. 611 brake horsepower or 620 metric horsepower. The 997 GT2 RS was only produced in numbers of 500. So obviously they all sold very quickly, and they now change hands at anywhere between €300,000 and €500,000 and up, depending on the mileage. Unfortunately, the problem with that is you very rarely ever see one on the road. The photographs I'm showing you on the screen right now are actually of my 997 Turbo, which I've converted into a GT2 RS. So I took all the parts that Porsche fitted to the GT2 RS. I actually bought them from Porsche, and I converted my car to the exact spec of a GT2 RS. Similar power output, identical interior, all of it's genuine. The bucket seats, rear seats came out. I lightened it as much as possible. So these pictures and the video footage is actually of my car. For the purposes of what you're seeing on the screen, it's what a GT2 RS looks like. Number 2 of my all-time favorite Porsches is the 991 Speedster. So they've designed this car specifically for their best customers. And what did they do? They took the normally aspirated engine from the 991.2 GT3 RS, the 4-litre engine. They took that and they took all the suspension, the chassis, the setup, everything. They put it onto this convertible car and they put a 6-speed manual gearbox in that car. Super low numbers, all sold out, of course. The aerial view of the Speedster reminds me of the 550 Spyder. Absolutely beautiful looking car. The number 1 car of top 10 Porsches is, of course, the 918 Spyder. If I win the lottery, this is the car I'm going to buy. The pinnacle of engineering of Porsche at the time of its creation. It's got a V8 normally aspirated engine with 2 electric motors on the front wheels, creating this monster of a car. Again, it's a mid-engine car. If you think about going through the history of Porsche, almost all of their iconic cars are mid-engine. The GT1, Carrera GT, and now the 918. So something tells you that future Porsches may all be mid-engine cars. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the cars that I selected. Are there any glaring omissions? I even mentioned a few of them in this video, but let me know what you think of the list. And yeah, feel free to leave comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Also, if you're not a subscriber, please be sure to subscribe. I'm going to produce more videos like this in the future. All right, guys, take it easy. Bye-bye.